Hello and welcome Espresso Sesh episode 111. My name is Nino Musco and I have the honor and the pleasure to have here next to me sitting Dan Wall. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you for having me.
A pleasure, a pleasure. So Dan, composer, he did more than 45 between movies and short films.
And TV shows.
And TV shows.
Documentaries.
Documentaries. But also you do theater installation, you work with theater installation.
And I've done, a bunch of dance stuff as
dance
well.
stuff. Yeah. And also theme park. So there's lots of things to go through in your career, because you started, you are from St. Louis, no, Missouri.
That's correct. I'm from St. Louis,
originally
Missouri.
From St. Louis, but you've been calling San Francisco home since a minute now, no?
Yeah, since the early '80s. I've been here for a long time.
Long time. What brought you here back in the day?
I was in a band. My band moved out from St. Louis to make it big, and that didn't really work out. But other things happened. So yeah, I was in a band called the Strikers was the name. We were like sort of a punk rock band from St. Louis, and the whole band moved out here and got a place. It's a weird time in San Francisco. We didn't know anybody. We just came, like just out of high school, came here, and just started and just stayed in a hotel, got a house, and started found jobs. Like, we didn't know anybody. I didn't know a single person here. We just showed up and started doing that.
I mean, that's like fortune helps the brave, no? Like you say, like favors the bold, no? Like, so you gotta be, you know,
young and stupid. I mean, the thing is that when you're young, you don't even know that that's a stupid idea.
I mean, like, it was a life changer for you, no? Like, and do you regret anything at the end of the day? I mean, not like right now.
No, I mean, it's like I think that we were on the fence whether we should move to Boston or San Francisco. We just chose San Francisco because the weather's better, and we just knew we wanted to get out of frickin' St. Louis. I mean, sorry, St. Louis, if anybody's listening, but
no, St. Louis is a beautiful place, but you know,
is it?
Yeah,
it is not.
No, it's not, yeah. I mean, we are not making a show about cities now, right?
Okay.
But you know, definitely, probably San Francisco has more opportunities for music, or at least had back in the 80s, no? Because
yes.
It was a different...
Definitely a different world back then, but it was a place to get out of at that time. There was no way.
So you started as a guitarist, a singer of this punk band, no? And then, like, you shifted gradually to composing, no?
Yes, and so... Yeah, so when I moved here, that band, they're all my friends, but we broke up pretty much right away because we were just all very different suddenly. And then I got in a band with what would eventually become a band called Pray for Rain.
Okay.
And Pray for Rain was sort of a post-punk pop thing, and we were playing all the regular clubs in San Francisco. But my sister, who is a filmmaker as well, went to school with a filmmaker named Alex Cox. And Alex Cox was sort of a fan of the band, but mostly a fan of my sister and me. And I ended up having conversations with him about music. And he kind of turned me on to Morricone. I know Morricone, the famous Italian Western composer.
Yeah, still alive, living legend.
Still alive,
big
amazing.
Yeah, and he walks his dog at 6 in the morning in Rome.
Yeah.
You can run into him, like, walking his dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, but he is like, and for many, I think that for many people, especially because he had a unique approach to doing scores, and that he would incorporate sort of very postmodern, like bring sounds and pop music, and he was just a very eclectic, accessible composer in a lot of ways. And so I think that's
also he was very experimental at the beginning of his career. You know? It was like Gruppo Nuova Consonanza was like they were doing like
music concrete and all that kind of stuff. And he was very experimental but also had the Ventures guitar tones, and so it had all this sort of pop sensibilities that made it very accessible for people from like me and for Alex Cox.
So Alex Cox introduced you to Morricone music.
To Morricone, he got the feeling at a certain point that I was being groomed because he was a filmmaker and he had yet to make his most famous film, which would be Repo Man, his first film. And so there was always conversations about film and music, and that's sort of how I got into thinking about music as score. So pretty much everything, as we will find out in my career, it all kind of comes back to him. He's still very much a big part of my life, a good friend, and a lot of things that I've done throughout my life have been through things that come through him. So
actually, we start the show with the soundtrack of one of his movies, no, Searcher 2.0.
Yeah, so that was one of his more current films, and the first film. So, Pray for Rain was a band playing, and my sister and him wrote a film called Sid and Nancy, which is a sort of cult classic. And because they were writing this film, I thought I should submit some music to it. And so I wrote this kind of weird music that wasn't punk. It was very kind of just sort of like atmospheric and ethereal, because as to match the script. And he ended up using that. He ended up using my demos in the film, and the rest is history, as they say. Yeah. They don't like to say it, but they have to say it.
So that brought you to like a prolific work as a composer, and also, like from movies to I've seen in your website you have like a portfolio, so many, like a lot of like broadcast and commercial. You work for television, doing like sound design, doing like little composition, especially like Japanese television, or
eventually. I mean, and so it all kind of dovetailed. I mean, once I had done some films, and so the Pray for Rain was a band at the beginning. We were sort of a collaborative band that would like have a lot of interaction, like and do various things as a band. And so like it was, and with everybody who played on it was the members of Pray for Rain. Gary Brown, Jim Woody were still my friends that are around. They had a lot to do with the early tracks. However, Sid and Nancy was all my composing. But we went on to do TV movies in the 90s. Just a whole bunch of them, maybe a dozen or so TV standard movie of the week movies. And then eventually ended up doing the TV commercials. I have a connection or a couple connections in doing commercials, but then one of them was a Japanese, had connections in Japan to do. So I did all through the aughts. I think I did like hundreds of Japanese TV commercials.
And also, like lately, talking about the Asian side of your work, you've been working for a theme park, for making music for a theme park in China.
Yeah, and so that's the newest iteration. I have many iterations.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do it, no? Because
right, but so the newest thing that I'm doing these days is what they call dark rides, which are basically installations that take place there are seated. It's basically a roller coaster indoors.
Okay.
And has different sound environments for each one, and the scores are full orchestra that I use Magic Orchestra, which is a local thing.
Yeah.
And they end up doing they've done one, and I'm going to do another one this year that I'm in the middle of this year. And then an installation in China next January. I did one last year in China. A little bit different. That was less. It was also a dark ride, but it was more of a domed multi-speaker experience. Whereas this is the one I'm working on currently is an actual roller coaster that moves through space.
And also, I've seen that you've been working with like surround sound, like 8+1, like 5+1. So with not just stereo, but like working with the environment, the sound installation is.
Yes, and so the one I did in Hefei, China, which is a small city in China, small city of 7 million.
I was about that.
It is a really sort of like it's just like sort of like a tiny little industrial town compared to most places in China. But that installation was a 20.1 system, surround system. With a proprietary system called Iosonus, which is it's a kind of like Atmos, which is Dolby's like theater thing, but they're a German company that does something similar that has 20 speakers that does all the math to do all the movement within a 20 speaker environment, and then in this one the audience is basically sitting inside this dome, and so the dome is all around you, and then you're flying over. And they move the chairs around, and they blow wind at you, and it's this 4D experience is what they call it, and these 20 speakers.
Yeah, so this is the actually sound design part, because you conceive like the experience itself. So you conceive the music, the sound, and also the way is the way the music is played to the listener. No, like to get the experience like with different speakers and
yeah. And so because I've done lots of tons of composing, but not so much sound design. And so that was what got me excited. Well, it was very exciting in a lot of ways, but the sound design was the most challenging part of that for me, because it was a flying ride. So it's a lot of atmosphere, a lot of wind, a lot of things, but there's a lot of various things. And you can't really show. There's a segue. There's little pieces of it on my website, but you can't really experience it.
I mean, also you need to be there to experience properly. No?
Yeah,
like
and so I had to mix it in that space.
Yeah, it's kind of like a reduction if you channel like 20 speakers down to left and right. No? So,
yes, it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I think that if I don't know if I'd be the guy for doing a theatrical mix. I'm not, because there's a lot of standards. But there's no standard way to do this. There's only like 2 other ones like this in the world. And so it all had to be done in the space in China, and I basically brought lots of elements and did all the mixes there. I brought enough elements, stems as we call them in the business, and just brought all the stems with all the various effects to make sure it sounded big and wide and like 20 different. I mean, if you just had a stereo effect of wind, you still have a lot of speakers need to fill. So I had like stacks and stacks of various wind effects, just to make it feel sort of immersive.
And also, it's a matter of like we don't go into the technical details, but it's a matter of like delays. Like it has to be like a little delayed, the sound to get like through the 20 speakers. No?
Yeah.
Like so,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was actually built into that Iosona system. They had all that stuff was.
It's already in the system.
They did that. That was an amazing. So I wasn't in charge of what that was. That was a company. There's a corporation, a company called Barco, which does this thing. But that was really interesting just to use my interface, my technical stuff with theirs. Was super fun and just like really creative, even on the technical level, which is not quite as interesting for other people, but it was for me.
So it's double creativity process. No, first to write the score and then like to make it sound in that environment. So.
Yeah, and then it was the first time I'd had it. I mean, I've done orchestral stuff before, but that was the first time I've actually done a full thing with everybody, and all this stuff is live, with Mina Choi doing the arrangements and the booking and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's play one song. You prepare like a little selection of songs. I mean,
not a little. That's a problem. I've got way too many. I've got a lot. I mean, we could play the song that was first placed in Sid and Nancy. I thought that might be. I mean, it's very old now, but it's the first song that. And I didn't back then. I just wrote a bunch of stuff, and then Alex Cox put them in the film. I mean, I didn't even hadn't seen the film.
Okay,
he just put them in there, but they kind of became iconic, and depending on who you
that's good, because we can go through your career, like from that deck. Yeah, man, it's I mean,
and what's mostly amazing about it is like it's all obscure. I mean, whereas I'm proud of things I've done, but it's never, it's nuts and bolts. I do what it takes to make a living. And that's sort of what I've always been doing. I mean, Sid Nancy was, maybe arguably the most famous thing I've done, but it enabled me to do all these various things to make a living, to be a composer and do interesting things and stay creative.
And live in San Francisco.
Yeah. And not die. So.
Yeah. Cool. So let's start with
Taxi to Heaven, it's called.
Taxi to Heaven.
And in the movie, you may remember it's the slow motion. The garbage is falling from... it's in a couple places in the film, but anyway. So I'm going to hit go, and hopefully you'll hear it. Are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, that's not it. Sorry.
So that was back the first score with Pray for Rain, the collective. Actually, I was looking. There was a Christian band, rock band, a Christian band called Pray for Rain, and you guys like
we sued them and out of existence. They were actually like weirdly nice we're Christian about it. I mean, they were like, "Oh, sorry," but we did have to tell them to stop.
Yeah, using the name.
Yeah,
especially like shout out to Nisha listening.
Hey. She's a fan of yours too, so
I'm a fan of hers too. Yeah. So we are a fan. We are a fan. Cool. So from then there was like an approach of songwriting, of composing. There was like, I mean, you made the music and the director choose it, no? So you put it in.
And so usually the way the process is, you look at the movie and then you write the music. Yeah. But in this case, because Alex just. Well, actually, from what I understand, the editor, David Martin, I believe, he was going through stuff and in that particular case, it was used as counterpoint. I mean, Sid and Nancy is this really gritty kind of urban about junkies, and so it's all this. It's like what the expected thing would be music that did that would be like urban, stuff, but Alex being creative and counterpoint, and they wanted to create counterpoint by using various things that were different than what the visuals you were seeing. And so apart from getting all placed in there, I learned a lot about how music relates to picture through that experience. And I mean, because it basically was my calling card, still is. I mean, I still approach. I mean, at a certain point in my career, I realized sometimes you have to put a happy music over a happy face. But that's generally you get. It's generally best to sort of explore all the other options when you're doing that kind of stuff. But it took me a while to get the skills. It's actually harder to do it so it sounds like the real deal, to sound like, like doing a fight scene that has beats and all this kind of thing. And that's a whole nother skill that I developed later. Whereas Sid and Nancy is very much counterpoint stuff that plays over it. They cut the picture to the music, which isn't real. They don't really do that in movies. And so I learned the skills of film score somewhat after this. I never got quite so lucky after that. Because in order to do score, you have to look at the movie, obviously. So that's been my life ever since then.
And I'm curious about like the process of when you your composition process, no? So you have your studio.
Yep.
Where you mostly work by yourself, and you write the scores for other instruments, and then like for example, like we listened the one before with the Magic Orchestra. So probably you gave them the scores and they executed it, like the orchestra executed it.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I write on with that stuff, with the orchestral stuff, which is more modern in terms of my career. That stuff I do. I work with like synthesizers, and I do the whole thing as a mock-up. And so it's like, I mean, in the mock-up, the synthesizers sound very good now, and so it's like you can get very close to having it sound fully realized. But then once you put an orchestra on it, it gets this whole other dimension to it. So I create everything. I do a mock-up everything I do. I'm not a musician. Like I'm barely a musician in the first place. I just do everything by ear. I don't read music. I can read music well enough to see if there's a big problem in the score. But other than that, it doesn't come up for me because I'm just working by myself. Yeah. So I will do all these. I'll do the full mock-up with all the instrumentation and all the parts. And then I'll hand it. In that case, I handed it over to Mina Choi of Magic, and she figured out, assigned who should be doing what, and like within what I've created, and then conducted. And she's really great with Pro Tools and knows. She's really good at being conversant with rock people from more of a pop background, as well as, and she knows Pro Tools in and out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, she is. I mean, the Magic Orchestra is the orchestra in studio of Tiny Telephone. So, like, we had John van der Sluis like a few weeks ago. So it's kind of like. It's like a small world in San Francisco.
It is in San Francisco. It's weird. I've never met that guy. I've seen him around. It's like kind of weird. It's kind of like at some point I'll meet that guy because that was a great interview with him.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Just go to Tiny Telephone.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, and I've never worked there. We recorded that stuff with Magic at Fantasy, so because it was it was a big old space. So
yeah, Fantasy Studio in Berkeley.
Yeah, famous Berkeley. Yeah, so. Where they also mix films there, and they do a lot of stuff there. But but yeah, so that was recorded in the biggest room they had there.
let's play another song.
Well, what do you want to hear?
I don't know, something that if you want to go chronologically through,
okay, so the next
or you want to go like themes. I don't know, like it's up to you. You know, we are.
Well, I don't know. Here,
you are listening to Espresso Sesh. This is Best Frequencies Forever, BFF.fm. My name is Nino Musco, and Dan Wool is my guest today.
Wool, yeah.
Wool, yes.
Like the fabric.
Like the fabric, yes.
Not easy to pronounce with certain accents, but
yeah, I know the Italian accent is.
How do you say wool in Italian?
Lana.
Lana, yeah.
Lana,
In Español, sí.
Like Daniele Lana.
Daniele
would be in Italian.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like
It's a much better name, Daniele Lana.
Daniele with the final E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Daniele.
Daniele, yes.
With it, Daniele Lana. Yeah.
But no, we are in the US, and you are Dan Wool.
I'm Dan Wool.
Wool, right? Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, okay. So I mean, we could. This could be a theme. I mean, so the next film I did for Alex was called Straight to Hell,
okay.
Which is a sort of a send up of Italian westerns, and so I really got to start exploring actually doing that kind of sound. So this I'll just play you the track from that the main title for Straight to Hell. And there was also a co-composer on that was the Pogues, and so I worked with the Pogues in various. Okay. Actually, same thing with Sid Nancy. I've like connected to the Irish punk band, the Pogues. They're still around and friends, and so I met them back in those times, and so they were co-composers on both of these films, as well as Joe Strummer. Joe Strummer from The Clash was also part of that scene. He had a song, and we had a couple songs in Sid Nancy and in Straight to Hell. But this is one of our contributions, or one of the tracks I wrote for the film Straight to Hell.
Cool.
Here it is.
And definitely this was influenced by Ennio Morricone, like the spaghetti western, spaghetti. I mean, I'm changing even the way I'm saying Italian names, like spaghetti.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
You're ruining your accent.
I'm ruining my accent. No. Keep it steady. So actually, these movies were like pretty like low budget. Like they shot this movie in like Andalusia, like South Spain.
Same thing with Straight to Hell. Shot in Andalusia, shot in Tabernas. Like the same set, on the same sets.
Yeah. So but they then became like classic. Like now, I mean, that is the sound of Western movies.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and car commercials.
and car commercial because they play with the desert. Probably they shoot a lot of car commercial in Black Rock City, like
right.
They do Burning Man, like in September. No?
But he's like one of them. He's got arguably the most appropriated. I mean, he could he could have more lawsuits if he wanted to. I mean, like talk about the blurred lines. So many people have stolen from Morricone over the years, myself among them. I mean, I do other things as well, but he is more. I can't think of anybody more imitated than him. I mean, maybe unless you get back to Stravinsky or the classics, those guys also get appropriated too. Yeah. But as far as modern composers that are living still, he is arguably like the most stolen from and the most influential of anybody.
And I think he never won an Academy Award. Just recently, just won one for his career.
Maybe.
That's like so ridiculous. Anyways.
Well, I mean, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in America. Those were the films. They're not really Academy Award type film, and he hasn't. His scores are less interesting, in my opinion, since those days. I mean, he evolved and does many great things, but though that was his, as far as my influences go, they kind of stop with the last of the Dollars films, which was Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah, Morricone, if you're listening to us...
Once Upon a Time in the West.
If you're listening to us, we love you. Besides the fact that you didn't win any Academy Awards, they don't understand nothing. No. Yeah, you're great.
You are the maestro.
Yeah. So, the maestro, for sure. So, as a score composer, you get, inspired. You, work with the images, no? Like, you get some footage of the movie and then you work for it. But how does it work with theater or dance company, no?
Well, with
because
theater,
you did a lot of work with that for theater, for dance, no?
Yes, so at some point, I got a roommate. It's like a roommate from the '80s. Ended up doing lots of scenic design. Matthew Antaki is a scenic designer. He does a lot of dance companies and opera in San Francisco, and he got me involved with a Liz Fane dance company, and so and he just because he knew me from back then and she wanted a cinematic approach to one of her scores, and so I just met her and realized right away there's really, and I've subsequently spoken to composers, there's no real formula for that. There's often choreographers they'll take a piece of music and work to that, but with commission scores, anything goes. I mean, I like to go and see and watch rehearsals and videotape, and then use those videotapes like I would a film. And I think some other composers work that way, but I think that it's not necessarily. I don't know how other composers. There's unlike film, which has a very long tradition of how it's done. I mean, it goes back, and there's it's always very technical. Dance is much more open, and you can do it however you want. There's no procedure, there's no rules, unlike film where you have to. I mean, there's reels involved, there's synchronization, there's lots of technical things. It kind of goes out the window when you're doing dance, because it's just an open art form, and so it's super fun. But I still because I come from that background, I still like to have something in front of me no matter what. Okay. And so I will do that. I'll videotape and then work to it as if it were a film.
Do you have more creativity freedom for scoring movie a ballet music?
Yeah, contemporary dance it is more open, and there's same thing. There's no, with film you're applying sort of tropes, and you're leveraging other films and other scores, and it is much more of an open art form, and there's no real rules. So it is more open and free, and it's not to say the choreographers sometimes are extremely specific and have know when it's wrong, but there's no we're trying to do we're trying to do a fight scene or a love scene or it's much less prescribed.
And probably you can explore more even more of the experimental side.
That's true.
There was I noticed when I listened to, let me see, what's the name of it? soundtrack for the Imperfect is Our Paradise.
Oh, yeah,
no? And there are nice moments. They go like even like off the beaten path. No, that is like more creative, more experimental.
It's more something and more soundscapey. Is like sort of it comes more about sound design. I mean, I think I might even be more musical than a lot of people that do. I mean, often contemporary dance is sound non-tonal type of things, and I do a lot of that, and I like doing that. And then the work I've done with Liz is always been installations, so it's like multi-speaker immersive installations, and so there's that again, that sort of technical component that I really like to work in as well. But yeah, she's very open to things, which again doesn't mean she doesn't have opinions, but it's much more of a collaboration. Whereas films, I mean, if you have a scene where you're trying to create tension, there's certain things you need to do in order to sort of draw on what we think of as tension music or scary music. And that's not so much the case with dance. You can do it in whichever way you feel is the best creatively.
Yeah, I see that there are like a couple, there's like a language for composing, like score composing. No?
Yeah.
There are some register that you use when you have to create this like suspense.
Right. That's been established in films over the years, generations.
Like the semitone. No.
Yeah, exactly. So that
kind of stuff.
And there's a million of those, and I'm starting to know all of those at this point. Whereas with dance, you can do. You mean you can use those, but generally when you start doing that, it's like you're referencing films, which is another thing. So you kind of stay away. You often stay away from those formulas or from those just those influences just to make your point sound something. You can go at it however you want.
That leads to another question. Huh? So you didn't study to be a composer.
No,
you're mostly like self-taught, and you mostly like learn hands-on because you start doing music, and your music was picked for a soundtrack, and then you start doing soundtracks. No?
That's right. I had no control over my own destiny.
I mean, then you learn along the way. No, that's it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I figured out you can make money off it. I mean, I was in a band, and it's fun to be in a band, but I was also working in an office, and so once I kind of got wind that I can make money, and at the beginning I thought I could be in a band. It was the first few films I was sort of to promote the band is what I was thinking at that time. It's like we can do this, and then it'll promote us, and then we can make it big. But eventually, not too long after that, I realized that that I really like doing this, and I can make a living doing this. And so, an agent materialized after Sid and Nancy, an LA agent, and they got me into doing other films and doing all those TV movies. Was all came from agents through that system down there, which kind of all changed as it evolved through the 90s, and we ended up I did a TV series, which was a whole crazy thing. I would go down to LA every week and spot this TV series and churn out a score every week, and that I learned a lot doing that because you have to do a lot of material in a short amount of time. And so, but somehow, I don't know, I didn't work that scene as well as I could have, and things changed, and I didn't want to move to LA ultimately. People, I think that the industry seemed to go in that direction where everybody was there in the studio, and they could go to their house. And so I wouldn't move to LA, and so I stayed here and ended up doing more, and that's when the TV commercials started to make sense to me. And love doing those too. I mean, all these things aren't that sexy. They're all kind of like, they're not. I mean, Sid and Nancy was cool, but doing TV movies, about, literally about, eating disorders. I did at least one of those. It doesn't sound that interesting, but
it pays the bill. No, you gotta do, and you stay coherent with yourself.
Yeah.
No, and you can live in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, if I could do that. And so, but I have managed to do that. But so doing these TV commercials where they're not, it's kind of not as cool as other things, but it's really fun. And I learn a lot, by deconstructing other with TV commercials, it's usually sound-alike of some sort. They're trying to like sound like, you know, well, more often than not, it's somebody current and bad. But sometimes, especially the Japanese, they have all kinds of weird, weird things that come from nowhere. They're like all these like strange, disparate, like types of influences that just I don't even know where they come from. But they'll ask you to make it sound like this, and I'll like go to school on and try to make it sound like some weird. I could play some of that too. Well, actually, you tell me. You tell me what kind of.
No, you pick.
Well, I mean, as I was saying that, there's this. I do have a good example of that if I can remember what it's called.
You're listening to BFF.FM, Espresso Sesh, then Wool. In the house, going through his career, like 30 years of career, no? Like 20...
obscurity, 30 years of obscurity.
Obscurity, yes.
Well, I can't find out. What is that? Well, here's a good one. This is like a song that Essence is a singer, a local singer. She sang on this one. But this is a good idea of a style. We call it style writing, where they just this is actually a Motown sounding thing. But I just kind of went to school and listened to various things that they were sending me and came up with this. And it's not they're commercial, so it's like it's not a full song, but it sort of stops at a certain point. But here it is.
And set to the next one. Yeah, so I see what you mean. What's the term you used exactly? Like to match the style of like, because the first one was definitely like Motown-esque, a little like Christmassy, you know, like with the bells.
I guess so. I wasn't intending to do Christmas, but there is like Motown. They would use Celeste and and Glockenspiel.
And the last one was more like drum and bass, and
it was like a spy theme thing. There was a hair commercial where the girl comes in on a ladder and she escapes and her hair is wonderful, and that's the kind of music you need for that.
But that it's a good thing because makes you expand your sonic palette, no?
Yeah.
Because you need to, if they ask you as this has to sound like that, for you it's a challenge to make it sound like that.
Yeah.
So it's like a learning process, and also discovering too, no? Because you listen to the source, and then you try to emulate, no? Like in brackets. So make
exactly, and then it's also again the whole technical thing. There's all this deconstructing the production. I mean, whereas Motown's just generally would be mono, and I think that I might have delivered a mono version of this to make it sound more. But so just deconstructing how all the whatever equipment, whatever guitar instruments, that, all the technical level of the production is super interesting for me.
Yeah.
And so just to make it sound like whatever it is that they're handing me. So
actually, you pull a term production. Let's talk about this. Let's spend a few minutes. So you've been you also produce some music for local artists here, you did we're the producer, no?
Yeah, so when I have a chance, it's not something that pays a great deal, but it's something I really like to do. I would like to do more of it if I could. But various bands, and among the bands would be Indiana Hale is the most recent project that I mixed on. So she tracked with Jason. That's Jason's last name. I can't remember. Hold on, I have it somewhere. Anyway, Jason Kick, of course. I'm sorry, Jason. Jason Kick did the tracks, and I mixed them and recorded vocals for Indiana Hale. Okay. Callie Price is another local artist, jazz singer that I produced her record and it's just now on Bandcamp. And then All My Pretty Ones. I did 2 different records with a group called All My Pretty Ones, which is Derek Schmidt. He's a songwriter whom I just adore. Okay. And so I recorded and produced those tracks as well.
Yeah, this is another part of your music spectrum. No?
Yeah, should we play one of those?
Yes, please.
Well, let's play. Which one? I don't know.
You pick one. I mean, something that you are nice and proud of. No, and.
Okay, I'm very proud of this track, and it's All My Pretty Ones. Since I produced these from the ground up, I feel more confident playing these. So here's a cool song called "Too Cool for School."
Took your course on Celtic arts. I got an A, but that is all that I recall. I never raised my hand, I never spoke again, I never came back at all. You've written several books since that fall. You've written several books since that fall. I've been away, sure, but I got a lot to show. Stack up fairly high, just so you know. And I've been playing a great deal all these years that went so fast. I wait patiently for you to ask. I wait patiently for you to ask, yeah. Meanwhile, there's the rest of us in the dark. But I digress, I came here for your signature. I will not waste your time, so I wrote my own letter. Maybe you will laugh, maybe you will smile, maybe I crossed the line. Maybe I'm just scared I've run out of time. Maybe I'm just scared I've run out of time. At any rate, I know I'm not the first or last to come here asking nasty for my second chance. Find me worthy, please tell me that I am walking the right path. I wait patiently for you to ask. I wait patiently for you to ask, always know who you are. Meanwhile, there's the rest of us in the dark.
And we got next
Indiana Hale.
Indiana Hale. BFF.FM.
Have you seen your eyes lately? They're beautiful. Deep mossy green. Such longing and such solitude. I ache that I could be with you. Everyone I love has bright green eyes. Everyone I love has bright green mossy eyes. Moss is softly growing over whatever windows you see through. Moss is softly growing over whatever windows you see through. Have you seen your eyes lately? I'll tell you what I see. Deep ocean blue. How I wish I could sail to you. Everyone I love has bright blue eyes. Everyone I love has bright blue crystal eyes. Crystal ocean washing over whatever windows you see through. Crystal ocean washing over whatever windows you see through. Peppercorn brown, I adore you. Tiger's eye with a golden hue. Tally it up, it's a week or two that I could go without missing you. Everyone I love has bright brown eyes. Everyone I love has bright brown tiger eyes. Golden sunlight washing over whatever windows you see through. Golden sunlight washing over whatever windows you see through. Golden sunlight washing over whatever windows you see through.
So this was Indiana Hale, produced by Dan Wool. Before we were like saying, well, the mics were off. That it's a different job, like being a composer or being a producer. No, sometimes you are less involved, like emotionally attached to the material you are just producing, no, for somebody else, and probably you without that like emotional attachment, you
Right.
can like operate better, no, like like I'm metaphorically like as a surgeon, like like you need to make this happen.
It's
So
very
you,
different
yeah.
and very fun compared to. I mean, everything's fun, but you can stand back and make sure and listen to it. And I mean, in Indiana's case, she's very hands on. She had a lot to do with her own producing, but I learn a lot. Is the other thing. It's like especially with all these guys. It's like it's stuff. Their approach is very different than mine. And if I were to say no, you should do it this way, that would just be more of me doing it. But what I do is if I think something needs it, I will suggest it. But then I think that John Vanderslice was very good about this, about listening to who you got in the I'm referring to the interview you did with him on this station a while back, about listening to who you're producing, because it's like, it's not you, it's them. And so you can learn so much. And I am like sort of learning so I can use it for my own practice, which is, I'm not sure if that's what his motivations are, but I am always sort of like, I mean, stuff that I learned from Indiana, from Derek Schmidt, from All My Pretty Ones, and Meredith Axelrod is actually another artist that I've worked with. I learned so much from listening to their approach, because their approach is completely alien. I mean, their brains are not my brain, and therefore it's just a different type of way of listening and coming up with music. And so I learn a great deal by producing, as well as hopefully. And I mean, I'd like to do more of it, but it is sort of something I have to do in between projects that pay me, basically. So.
Yeah, but it's always you always like to do it. So
Yeah.
the merrier. No, like if some occasions, if you're listening,
I learn it gets me out of my world, and I tend to, because my work is always technical. Everything I do is on a computer. It's all synthesizers, and I mean, I play guitar some, but everything is technology based. But All My Pretty Ones in Indiana Hell are not. They're very much acoustic. Everything is recorded, and so that's also an appeal to me, some of actually miking things, because I like doing that, and it doesn't come up all that often, and I like doing it. So
cool. Let's talk about spend a few minutes about the San Francisco music scene. So you've been here since the 80s, so you've seen this city,
seen it all.
You've seen it all. I mean, and you still call it home. So you didn't go to LA. I mean, even if you've been working in LA, but you stay here. Right?
Yeah, I worked a lot. Exactly. I mean, I would go there a lot, but we would always record here, and I've always worked out of San Francisco. So, and I've seen it all, and I'm sort of less. I mean, for me, like, the 14 still runs, and I still see music most nights of the week.
Yeah, we run into each other on the 14, probably.
Yeah, that's right. So, and so it's like the world that I inhabit is, it changes, and it's like I've seen people just like come and go, and I'm rent controlled in, so who knows, if I were to lose that, then I would definitely be singing a different tune. But for me, I've figured out a way to I mean, things come and they go, but it always comes back, and there's still lots of really great creative people in this city, and in Oakland. I mean, there is, admittedly, there's a lot. Oakland is a wonderful place, so whenever I'm there, I feel like this is a great place, but it's not. It's hard for me to picture living there, but I love it there, and I think it's arguably a more sort of vibrant place in San Francisco. But San Francisco is still got lots going on, and I got lots to do. So
good. No, that's good, because like that's the place we are living, and there is. I mean, I have a lot of love for this place, and I'm still positive about the good things. I'm more than the bad things. That are around us.
Yeah, and these things are cyclical. I mean, who knows? I mean, the .com would be a good example of it came and it went, and it looked like the end was everything's fucked. We'll never get out of here. It's never, and then it kind of died away. So it's like that is something you do after you've been in the scene for a long time. You kind of see these cycles come and go, and so I'm not quite as alarmed as maybe I should be, but it is cyclical, and there's still lots to do, and there's still lots of music out there, and people are still calling me. I mean, so the work that I do currently is based with Tippett Tippett Studios is a Berkeley-based company, and they're managed to survive. I mean, and they too, they're a CGI company, and And they've managed to, they employ people there, and they're kind of, I mean, and there's like, there's other companies like Pixar. There's a lot of sort of creative things that go on in the Bay Area still. It's not going away.
Yeah, no, I mean, for technology, creativity, there probably is the center here, no? Like,
right.
Because, even, like, even in the East Bay, there are, like, Pixar is on the East Bay, in the, like, Emeryville, something like that. So,
yeah.
There is something, I mean, there is...
Yeah, they're like a weird combination of creativity and tech, I guess.
Yeah, so, like, creativity is still alive here, like, yeah.
Yeah, and actually Tippett is a really good example of that. I mean, I don't know if anybody it's in this. They do CGI, and Phil Tippett is one of the people, a good friend and somebody who is really influential on me, and who I met through Alex Cox. They go way back, and Phil Tippett has done a lot of special effects. He was responsible for special effects in Star Wars, the first trilogy of Star Wars, as well as Jurassic Park, and he's very much a visionary in that field. And they started a company that is very Bay Area. I mean, everything about it is it's still, I mean, it's not easy for them to get work, but all the theme park ride work that I do is through them. But they're,
I think I've seen a video with CGI, no?
Yeah, and so the CGI, they did the CGI of that flying ride, and they're doing the CGI of all so they're responsible for all the media for these things, and I'm doing the sound portions of the media that they deliver. But they're a great company, and they're good to their employees, and everybody likes working for them, and it's just an example of a vibrant sort of culture that still is very much here in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, because they're very, very Berkeley.
Yeah, but also it's an example that the Bay Area craft and art mixed like technology and creativity is sells outside the Bay Area. So people from China, like company from China, hire you
outsourced.
guys.
Yeah, Japanese. I'm outsourced too. I'm being outsourced too. Yeah, no doubt. It's kind of weird. One thing I have never done much of is games, which is kind of odd. I don't know why that hasn't come up, because there's a lot of that here too.
Yeah,
but that has just, and I've done a couple here and there, but I've just never gravitated towards that. But I'm young. Who knows? I can still have.
Yeah, probably can still have. Actually, yesterday there was these days there is a game developers conference in San Francisco.
Oh, there is? Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, actually I played a party for them last night.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a huge, I don't know why that hasn't ever filtered in, because everything else sure as has. I mean, I've done so many weird things. So, but it could still happen. I mean, and I think that a lot of the technology in these that I'm working with for these rides kind of crosses over into that, because there's like, in order to get these rides right, they create VR versions of it. So I'm like looking at it at the VR version, not that they're going to use that, but in order to see what this ride, to envision the ride, they create a VR version just so everybody can see what everything is going to look like and how it's going to feel. And so that sort of feels like a game at that point, but we'll see. And they may, I don't know. I mean, apart from the music, I'm also doing all the music from in the outside. There's like lines, and there's like a whole like little village that goes around. So I'm doing all this installation music, all these various things, and a pop song they want for this thing. And I can see somebody saying a game too. So they're the Chinese. Yeah,
probably the theme park music is going to be like a gateway for.
That's what they're doing. Yeah. So
for video games, now for music. So you never know.
Yeah, it could be. So I'm prepared for that, and it seems fun. I mean, again, it seems like a very technical. I mean, I think it's a very crowded field. I think a lot of composers are doing it, and so I don't know if it's something I could just walk into. But my strategy for getting work is odd in that I don't do that. I don't go get work. It just sort of finds me, and so. I think that's one of my keys to success, as I've said it, is that I just pick up the phone. I mean, I'm available. Yeah. And I just say yes to everything and don't think about it. So.
Let's play some of the last, one of the last few.
Well, I could play something from that, from the orchestral stuff the Magic did.
Yes.
Is that what? Okay, is that good?
Sounds great. Yes.
Okay.
You want to introduce it real quick?
So the thing that I did with the last ride had like 6 different sections that you fly through China that had, and this is the mountain theme, And yeah, live orchestra by Magic Magic. Here it comes.
Yeah, this was the theme park. Theme park music score, great. Like, you know, like very, I mean, cinematic.
Cinematic, yeah. I mean, right. So yeah, so they wanted it to sound very cinematic.
Very cinematic, yeah.
And not so Chinese. I mean, actually, there's one other piece in here that is a Chinese traditional theme that I did, that I rearranged too. Of one of these, but most of them, they kind of wanted it to sound like big Hollywood movies. So, yeah.
You want to play the one with some traditional Chinese influence?
Yeah.
Just, you know, like because, you know, we are showcasing your work.
Yeah.
And,
so this is, I mean, it's still orchestral, but here's one it is, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the piece, but many people from China will recognize the melody. Here it is.
You know what I like in the film score, in general, like scoring, like that music really like takes you everywhere, no, like completely like.
Yeah, it is. It can take a right turn really fast. It can do whatever it wants. I mean, things about pop music, you have to stay kind of on a grid, and like all this stuff, there's not necessarily a grid. Everything can change and move, and it's very fluid.
But you know, when you're composing a score for like a theme park or like a movie, it's like really like can get you very creative and like get you like inspect and study like traditional Chinese music in order to make this blending, no? Or like it's great, no? I think it's and all of this is conceived by one person, like working by himself, no, like composing, and then like. So like I would like to know what's going on in your mind when you are composing, like like you're making words like with sounds.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the deadline is what's talking, and it's like you just like have to settle. And there's like the thing is with films, there's almost always a deadline, and that definitely gets you motivated.
Yeah.
But like in that. So with that, I mean, there's often in modern times there's a temp score, so the editor will come up with, and they'll have music in the film before you've even seen it that is like kind of in the mode that they want. Okay. Sometimes it's exactly what they want, which is which can be a problem, both legally and sort of creatively, because you need to make it sound like the temp score that they've created, that they've put in there, and a lot of times they'll put in something famous, like a John Williams score. It's like you got to try to do this, and so that can be problematic to get people to sort of not think about the score, because once people hear the music, they tend to like just get used to it, and so if you change it, it can be a problem. And some directors are better at accepting the new score than others. But with the theme park rides, I mean, and I should have mentioned that they're all very short. I mean, the whole ride is only 6 minutes, so it's not that much time. But I did the temp score myself. I kind of found stuff that I thought I knew I could pull off orchestrally, and use that. I mean, it worked fine. But I kind of knew. I mean, that I could do something like that. It's different enough that it's not that we wouldn't get sued, and that it's and I could be creative with, but it would also invoke all this big sort of Hollywood thematic stuff. So
and also you have to keep it like according to you need 35 seconds, 30 seconds according to the
I mean,
beats, no?
right, and then there's all kinds of like there's all kinds of like movement within that. I mean, these are with the theme park, especially with this one, there wasn't much going on within it. I mean, there was things to hit, but each one was just sort of like beautiful music, beautiful scene kind of thing. So it's a little different than a film. I mean, I could play something that is more like kind of score-ish.
Okay. And you want to introduce it to?
Well, it's kind of long. It's like 4 minutes.
Yeah. We got 4 minutes.
Okay. So this is from a film, 2000s called Prairie Fire. Again, obscurity. No, it may be out on video somewhere. No, it's not. Fame is not my forte, but it is more of a sort of a score that there's a lot of guitar and there's a lot of soundscape-ness to it, and tension, and more of a filmic cue that you might expect to hear in a tension-filled film called Hide and Seek.
Hide and Seek. Den vår BFF.fm. Yeah, definitely you're taking us to a nice sonic voyage with your composition. So this was like a standoff.
I think the name of the film ended up being Prairie Fire. Is what?
Okay.
Yeah, so they kept changing it, and so
No, the scene for this music.
Oh, the scene was like it was sort of like hunting through an old house.
Okay.
And then Natasha Henstridge was the actor, and then she finds him and tries to shoot him, and he dives, and there's all kinds of action, and that's when it gets big, and there's chasing and death.
Dynamic range.
It's loud and quiet. I do both, quiet.
It's
or
good,
loud.
no, because nowadays the music
Loud, yeah, no, it's hard to be quiet.
no. The mainstream, especially music, is so loud, and there is no dynamic range.
Yeah. Well, that's it's dynamics is your friend when you're doing score. I mean, it's like to have it because it's like if you have it quiet and people can hear it, then you have all this range to sort of like scare people or to make things
keep them
big.
like up. If you are probably like relaxing too much and the scene, you got this dynamic range. Or you got all these tricks that probably you learn as a composer, a score composer, along the way.
Well, beats and like trying to figure out like within a scene where because you don't necessarily want to follow the punch with it's like to stay off of sounds that are going to be in the sound design as well as part of that. Well, to make sure that you leave room for everybody to do it, and then that's in that scene there was lots of action, and I think that earlier on in my career it was much more challenging to do that kind of things because I was just and actually Morricone is not he's not like a sort of a traditional scoring approach. Is generally they're just like tracks that work over things generally, but you don't see him later on he does regular tradition, but in those you don't see him like scoring an action scene with rubato and different tempos. It's usually they're just playing ba 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 and there's like lots of it's just more of it's more counterpoint and tracks that work over the entire scene rather than scoring the beats and the little moments within the thing. He didn't do that much then, and as such, I didn't literally learn that skill until I started doing the TV movies, which they kind of require you to do traditional score like that. And I got in trouble a couple times for not doing that, for trying to be kind of arty and counterpointy, and they want. If there's a fight, they want there to be a fight music. Yeah. Okay. And so I had to learn what the hell that meant at some point if I wanted to keep working.
Please play something else that takes us in another space. Okay?
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't played. This again, it's not that short, but an excerpt from a dance piece.
Okay.
But the dance piece is full of words, and it was done with Axis Dance Company a few years ago. Mark Brew was a choreographer, and this is one of the crazy tracks from that. It's called Then Chaos.
it's nice to see then that like your music takes us completely different spaces. No, this was like mostly like Chemical Brothers inspired, like with some. Still, I had some Morricone thing, like in the piano.
I guess so. Yeah, this is. Yeah, I mean, this is as far away from Morricone's. Even when I try to not sound like him, I do, and because I've done that. I did Alex Cox, my friend and my sort of the hub of all my creative stuff. His last film was a Western, and I went way out of my way to not do an Italian Western because I've done Italian Western and I love it, but I tried to do like an American Western, which is a very different sound. It's a very kind of major, it's just a very different approach, like that, something that John Wayne would be in as opposed to, whoever was in Italian Westerns. I think Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yes.
So
Leave Van Cleef
and Leave Van Cleef, and so
Maria Volonté,
right, and so this was all sort of cowboy music. I made an effort, but even then, people go, "Oh, it sounds like Morricone." And I love Morricone, but I was like, even when I'm trying not to, it's in my DNA, and I think because he got into my brain young enough that I shall never escape Morricone.
We were saying this before. Let's repeat it, or kind of let's talk about this. That when you're listening to music, like you always do you enjoy the music itself, or you listen in a technical way, try to figure out how the music is recorded, how like the instruments involved, and especially probably if you're watching a movie, you go to the theater, you watch a movie. Can you enjoy it, or you are still analyzing? Oh yeah, this score is good right now, like the sound effects. How is it?
Yeah, no. Yeah, my favorite. I tell people my favorite score is "No Country for Old Men," which has no score at all. And then you tell people, they go, "Oh yeah, I love that score." People don't really know it, but I was very aware of it because it's a strange effect, isn't it? When there's no music at all, it's just this very empty, and that worked with that film. Yeah. I mean, they have great films. They often Carter Burwell is their guy, and he's a great composer. One of the guys, I even buy his stuff. He's like but there, and I believe he's credited. He has a credit. There may be some sort of like tone, but he has a music credit on No Country for Old Men. But I really enjoy it because with film, I mean, sometimes it'll sneak in, but I'm almost always aware of this music starting and stopping and what it's doing. And so, yes, it becomes kind of a burden when you're watching a film. And I go out and I'll get taken out, not watch the film, because I'll be going, what the hell's the wind section doing there? Yeah. And then I'll remember the film. So yeah, it does become that way, sort of like work in a way. And the same thing with listening to music. I mean, depending on what it is, I will often be analyzing what is going on just so I can appropriate it and use it in some other film.
Or, because you are using different registers in your composition.
Yeah,
right? So you need to know how to make that register happen. No?
Yeah, and because I'm not trained, so I have to sort of listen for all these things.
Like the one before you played, like drums like that. So, because, each sound brings some vibe, some memory, some feeling, no? So if you're working with feelings,
you're invoking things that are from other things, and especially like electronic music, everybody has certain associations that they have with various chord structures, and so you're dealing with all that psychological stuff. There's the obvious ones of like two notes that are out of tune is obvious for creating tension, but then there's a whole palette of things like that you can use as film, and I stumble on them a lot. I mean, a lot of times because my writing process is, I'm not the kind of person that gets delivery. Some composers will get like a delivery. They go, "Oh, I got to get to the piano." I'm not that guy. I have to be at the instrument, and the delivery comes just seconds before it's just like a little I think it seems like a buffer between, like a 2-second buffer between my brain and the idea. So it's like I'm not. They come out. They stream. It's like a streaming. I'm like a streaming composer as opposed to a delivery composer.
Do you ever make music useless. No, like
songwriting.
Songwriting. Yeah.
I do. It's occasional. It's kind of rare, but it's like, I mean, back when I was in bands, they were sort of useless.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't the intent, but it did end up being useless.
Yeah,
but
it's the wrong term, right?
Right.
You know, like without
being paid,
or like without like commission.
or without purpose. Yeah, I mean, because I do stuff
just for the heck of it. No,
I mean, I joke often that I don't do anything unless you pay me, and it's true to a certain extent. I mean, often I'm not paid. I'm paid very little, or a promise of being paid, or deferred payment, and that's often that's just as good for me. It needs to have a purpose. It's pretty rare. I mean, there's like maybe, and I brought a song that I actually, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember. Time is a weird thing. So things were slow, and I did a song, and it's sort of like this song, and so I did do that. But it's been 4 years since I did that. So it comes up basically when I'm out of work for a long time.
Okay,
is when that happens.
Because you still need to make music, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the dance stuff doesn't. You feel like an artist when you're working on dance because they don't really pay you much, so it has that sort of that feel to it. But it's somebody else's. It's kind of rare that I create work. I think is what you're asking. It's like not since I was in a songwriter did I do that regularly. I am a career collaborator, and I think that is one of my keys to success, is that I listen to people. I'm not as good a composer as other people on a technical level, but I have a background in film because my sister was there, and so I know a lot of how they think, and then I listen to them. So I mean, I think that I'm better at listening to and giving feedback to filmmakers than other people might be. That they may be better composers and better musicians, but I'm better at sort of listening, basically.
It's a good thing because you know, especially like these days, nobody's listening, everybody's talking.
Yeah, and
at the same time.
And directors like to talk a lot about the thing, and if you try to, and I've gone down that road where I said, I'm really into doing I really want to do a sort of Dixieland thing here. It's going to be just right, and it's just because I felt like doing it in my life and try to impose. It doesn't work. You kind of have to let. And a good filmmaker will listen to the film. A lot of times, the film will change with their vision will have changed as they're going through it. And good filmmakers will listen to the film. The film will often like have a new request that no one knows about, and a different influence. And you have to be aware of like things that come up that aren't necessarily weren't in the script in the first place. So
you want to play the song, the one you composed with no purpose, like
this is like a song
for the love of music,
Yeah, this is like a song I'm going to sing on it. I hope Elsa's listening because she always gets really excited. I'm not a good singer, but for some reason she doesn't mind.
I guess give a shout to Elsa.
So here, radio debut of What Someday Won't Be. Here it comes.
From the soundless wells of unswung bells, it was obvious that the most that she would show for me was cautious trust. Through warm water waves, she gently explained, through unspoken signs, the law defined. A cut made so clear makes pain less severe, resigning to dreams
was done. Wool.
So take a little flight. It's only right that you should hear my position. These feelings I reflect will not connect through a paper or a wire. You could love me still if you let it rain well, and I could never get my fill. Don't move to Georgia. This hill was not so high, but in your mind you put a mountain between us. You're letting your career interfere, and that's a real bad idea. Has your ambition grown so tall, or your feelings for me small? 'Cause if there's any left at all, don't move to Georgia. I don't understand why there's not a place for me. You could fit me in between, and I don't understand why you couldn't make it so. Georgia's farther than you know. You could love me still if you let it rain it will, and I could never get my fill. Don't move to Georgia. I don't understand why there's not a place for me. You could fit me in between, and I don't understand why you couldn't make it so. Georgia's farther than you know.
Nice to listen to your music made just for pleasure, no?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I kind of forgot that those are both on Bandcamp, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it actually on Bandcamp, and your Bandcamp actually is a good way to listen to some of your work.
Yeah, it's not as updated as it could be, but
yeah, but there is the Searcher 2.0.
Yep.
The old soundtrack. There
Right.
are a couple of dance soundtrack, and there is this one, and there is some other stuff. And also the website danvol.com.
danvol.com. That's my name.
Yes, it's or Pray for Rain, no?
Or PrayForRain.com. I still like cling to the Pray for Rain brand just because it, for certain people of a certain age, it resonates, but for most it doesn't. Dan Wool resonates. So yeah, that's.
There was So check him out on the interwebs.
Yeah, and so it's dance. There's a few dance things, and soon to be a score for hopefully for this ongoing thing, which I want to bring up, was called Mad God, which is Phil Tippett, who I mentioned earlier. It's his like stop motion project that's been going on for years and years, and that's the scores are. They're all one long 15-minute cue, so we won't play them. But I'm going to put that up there. The score for Mad God, which is a collaboration with me and sound designer Richard Becks, who is somebody I've worked with over the years, who's a listy sort of sound designer who did like Apocalypse Now and Harry Potter and Mad God 1, 2, and 3 we're working on now. But I'm going to put those up there soon. So because people weirdly that is like in the sort of stop motion world, there's a whole niche market. Phil Tippett is a god, and he's a really interesting filmmaker, and hopefully more of that will be coming soon. And that's who the rides. I'm working for that company, but then they also do this creative artistic stop motion things on their free time. All those CGI guys love doing stop motion and things like all the hands-on stuff that they don't get to do during the week.
So we're gonna have like a little preview of that.
Okay, so the next, what I was going to do next is like what I'm working on, what I just worked on. Now I can't do Mad God because it's 15 minutes long, and we want to go home. So this is just a corporate thing. It's super nuts and bolts, but it's a fun thing. I'll play that. It's just a thing. It's like a sizzle reel for Little Caesar's Pizza, and they gave me permission. I had to ask for if I could play it, and they said I could. I can't show you the visuals, but I can play you the music.
All right.
And here it is, How I Make My Living. One more. So.
All right.
Here it is.
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza.
And here's one more.
There's one more, okay. So if you probably
Pizza.
if you probably haven't listened to any music from Dan, probably you have was in some commercial TV. You didn't know, but what probably was some of your music. So
Possibly. Most
yeah.
of the commercials, I've done very few domestic commercials, but and these are both. So these are like often whatever project I do, I generally do more than one version, and the client will pick them. And so that was 2 versions of the Little Caesars thing, and the second one was not picked, but it was almost picked.
But gave us an idea of your like scoring range, no? Like so, from like really like a sonic voyage, like for ears.
Yeah. It is, and as I was just saying, it's like maybe I should focus more on something because I'm all over the map. I mean, I love doing all this stuff. It's super creative, but I would, things like buying a house. You see them out there, and people like have like lives and established things, and I think about those things sometime. And if I focused, maybe I could.
If you focus, you can buy a house.
I could do something. I would, because stability. I mean, I do lots of things, and surviving is when I say I've survived for a long time. It is just that. I mean, there's been times that are more prosperous than others, but often it's just trying to figure out what's going on. And doing these rides is one of the more steady things. I mean, because they have these it's like a year out. So theoretically, I'll be doing something on this ride until January, if not later, of next year. I mean, yes, of next year. So it feels sort of it's the steadiest. It's only first time I've been able to predict a year into the future of having work. Whether I'll have other work as well, but I don't know if it'll be completely this, but it could be. It's a big project, so it may be just this project from here on out. But so this kind of feels stable.
Or if anybody's listening, like there is a composer available,
definitely. Don't not call me because I'm so busy. It's definitely try me because I think I'm going to do mix somebody's songs and do these various things and whenever I can in between. But yeah, there's a lot to do on this Chinese ride. So.
And also, it's good because you are dealing with like some different musical culture, So you're learning new even scales and like sounds, no?
Definitely. I mean, it's weird. The Chinese, there's all these cliches about what they listen to, the ding ding ding, but they actually. A lot of the music really does that, and so it's like the composers that kind of that sort of appropriated all those sort of fifths. They're like really big on pentatonic fifths, and I know enough music to know that's if you do that. And I thought it would be cliche, so I avoided it at first. But then that piece that I played earlier, it's really just basic stuff. And so, I mean, it gets very complex. I mean, there's lots of various tonal things that go on in various things. But the popular, I mean, when you're trying to do something that is accessible to everybody, in China, they often go back to that kind of cliche isn't the word, but very used type of tonality.
Yeah, it's kind of a trademark. No, that became kind of a trademark. So,
but I always assumed it was a Hollywood trope. I mean a Hollywood sort of appropriation, but it's not an accent. I mean, there is a lot of that, and then it also works 2 ways. So they're also listening. They're influenced less than one might think, but they are influenced by our culture and by our music. But all those guys were listening to various things. But then again, I mean, like that, there was like smaller. There's a lot of interesting smaller things that go way away from all that sort of cliche tonality. But I don't get in trouble. I always think they're gonna like say, oh, that's you're pandering, but they don't. Either they don't mind being pandered to, or I'm not pandering. I don't know. So.
Yeah, because also, as music makers, we think about also the emotional attachment to the music is very deep, and like a director will just see the music as like a component of the vision. So I have long story short, you find way more details on your own composition that probably you are not happy with, that like a listener or like a director who's using your music for like a different purpose doesn't see it. No? So.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm more critical. I mean, the things that they pick out are often different than mine, than what I wouldn't like about it. So, but yeah, I'm much more critical and way more detailed than they need. I mean, they often, and it is one of my failings as a composer, is I'd be better if I could just keep it simple and keep things. I kind of tend to layer things on, as those last 2 tracks might have demonstrated. I tend to like lots of stuff in there. But I really respect composers that can do just the minimal, just play a melody, and maybe some sort of counterpoint. But it's like it's difficult to do. I always like to hear more.
So. What is the last movie that you watched and you really liked the soundtrack?
The last movie this is a surprise question because I mean, I didn't hate Blade Runner,
Right, yes.
and I didn't hate Dunkirk. I mean, these are Hans Zimmer is he's sort of a cliche guy, but I mean, those are the ones that are coming to mind now.
Okay.
Dunkirk was pretty cool. I mean, it was so big and loud and weird that I kind of liked it. It was, I mean, and I like Trent Reznor's scores a lot, and I got the feeling that was like Hans Zimmer being Trent Reznor. That was with those scores. I didn't care for the hope nobody hates me, but for the Shape of Water score.
Okay.
Even that guy's great. That guy has other scores that are super cool. Desplat, whatever his name is. You won't understand me more. He's a good composer, but I didn't like that sort of whatever. There's things, but trying to think of anything really creative. I don't know. I can't think of them.
So, no worries. No.
Should have given me this question ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
I have to use my brain. If I'm just not talking about myself, I don't know what the hell's going on. I can tell you.
No, but actually, let's bring it because time is up almost, and at 4 p.m. there's going to be Astral Projection Radio Hour.
Oh, okay.
Live here on the air. So let's start wrapping up the show. We have this collaboration that actually with the brothers from
Debbie Harry, yes.
Yeah, from Blondie.
Yep.
So you want to talk about this a little bit, and we play the song?
Yeah. So there's this film, Alex Cox, again, the hub of my universe, of my creative film thing. Everything leads back to him. He did a film called Three Businessmen. It was actually in the early. I think it was in 2000. It was a long time ago, like everything else. But he was also friends with Debbie Harry, and in one of the characters in the film, his favorite song was Ghost Riders in the Sky, which is a famous song, cowboy song written by Stan Jones. And so it's in the film, and then I happen to know Stan Jones Jr., who owns all the publishing for that film, for all Stan Jones' work. He was also a cowboy, like the score composer. And so I knew that I could get the publishing rights to that song, and so Alex called Debbie and asked her if she would do it, and she said yes. I also asked Patti Smith if she would do it, but she didn't return the call. Her manager said she could. No, actually that was a scheduling thing. She couldn't do it because she was on tour. But anyway, Debbie did it, and this is it. It's like what I say is simultaneously the goofiest and the coolest thing that I've ever worked on.
Goofiest because of the...
It's a techno version of Ghost Riders in the Skies you will hear. So there it's kind of goofy. But
this is the work of a music score composer. So
right, but it's got Debbie Harry, and as you will hear, she's totally as Debbie as she gets.
Cool.
So here she is, Ghost Riders in the Sky, featuring Debbie Harry.
Flowering eyes were blurred, their shirts all soaked with sweat. They're riding hard to catch that herd, but they ain't